There's a light at the end of the tunnel of every fat loss goal that I think isn't spoken about quite enough, especially when most people think of fat loss in terms of some kind of goal that they're pursuing. It's something where, they're trying to get to an endpoint of having a certain body type, especially, the goal is always going to be to have that long term. It's not just going to be to lose the weight, it's going to be to keep it off. And it is a real shame because 95% of diets ultimately fail. This is a statistic that I frequently talk about. I frequently publish it. It's something that I think really needs to be addressed. Most of the time this happens because people are following unsustainable methods to achieve the result. They think they need to do it for the rest of their lives, and they say to themselves, right, I've now converted over to this new lifestyle. Even though it's tough, I really want the result. But they've basically bitten off more than they can chew. They've underestimated what the rest of their life is going to look like if they actually are following a very restrictive lifestyle. It could be intermittent fasting, it could be cutting out carbohydrates, it could be doing some kind of keto diet, whatever it is. You have to remember that the reward system in the brain, that whole dopaminergic system, I'm going to describe this in bro science terms because I am not a neuroscientist, but unfortunately I've had to come face to face with how to manage my own dopamine system quite a lot in my life with various diagnoses that I won't go into on this video. But you have two types of dopamine. You have tonic and phasic, right? Now, when you do you do some kind of, drastic weight loss program, right? So let's imagine you're doing intermittent fasting or keto or one of these, or you're just cutting your calories really, really low. Now, you will feel this acceleration. You will feel almost this cleansing effect. You will have heightened focus. You will have heightened senses to an extent. Because you're balancing the whole dopaminergic system, you're bringing phasic and tonic dopamine levels closer together. Okay, there's less of a wild fluctuation between both. So if you could think of tonic dopamine as like your baseline level of dopamine that you have, and then you have the phasic level, which is more responsive to things like reward, like eating the sugary snack, having the cigarette, having the drink, etc. If you ramp up the tonic for too long and the phasic doesn't catch up to meet it through, daily practices or even just having more wealth, having a higher societal status. If the tonic doesn't reach the phasic, what you're going to end up with is a situation where basically you've just crashed your phasic dopamine, right, over time, where both the phasic and the tonic are suppressed. Both of them are depressed even. And that's what I found 6 to 8 weeks-ish into these kind of restrictive ways of eating, into these restrictive diets. You've basically now just tanked both levels, and that just leads to you feeling depressed and you've got no sense of reward. What you ideally want is to actually raise your baseline. You want to raise tonic levels of dopamine. And the way you're going to do that is with an ecosystem of sustainable habits that you can maintain for the rest of your life. You'll also have little spikes in phasic dopamine, which is fine. That's what actually incentivizes us to seek reward, to better our lives. There's nothing inherently wrong with that whole reward system. It's a feature, not a bug. The problem is we're in an overabundant society or an overabundant culture that we have now when it comes to food, when it comes to sugar, when it comes to reward. It's very easy to just spike that phasic dopamine, the short-term gratification side of dopamine, to get completely out of whack in relation to tonic levels of dopamine. Now, that's a bit of a side tangent in discussing how people don't set up fat loss strategies that actually last for them in the long term. And how this relates is, let's imagine you've got some kind of restrictive diet that you're seeing the results. you actually get the result that you want. You are, in a sense, capping your phasic dopamine levels, so the short-term spikes, because you're denying yourself so much reward. But you don't care because you're raising your baseline the whole time, because you're also seeing the rewards from the wins on the scale. Actually, sorry, those wins on the scale would kind of be little spikes. But let's imagine then you cut over to a maintenance period, or you want to just maintain your weight and you think, all right, I have to maintain this lifestyle. You no longer now have those little transient rewards from seeing your progress on the scales, because you're simply trying to maintain your weight. You're not feeling that acceleration anymore. You're not feeling those wins. And then you're also left with the scenario that you're not getting any reward from things in your diet. And I see this all the time. And then what happens is people eventually crack. They give into binge eating, and then they just get such an overwhelming sense of reward that it's like, you know, a drug addict going back to their drug of choice, or an alcoholic going back on the booze. And then it's just cut over completely back into a way of not watching what you eat, binge eating, etc., until all the weight goes back on. The better way to do this is we need to be mindful of both raising our baseline levels, right, of reward. I won't even use the word dopamine anymore, but just the baseline levels of reward, and then also having healthier habits that are very much sustainable. They don't cause a lot of friction in our lives. So, for example, for myself, I lost a lot of weight recently. I've cut, for the summer, I lost about 6 kilos, in and around that much weight. And I did it by dropping to 2,400 calories per day, because I have quite a fast metabolism. And now I am basically keeping up all of the same habits that I had on my fat loss phase while I cut over to maintenance calories. So I'm eating more food, but I'm doing the exact same things that I did when I was dieting. So now I'm at 3,200 calories per day, still maintaining my weight because I raised those calories quite incrementally. And I'm still going to the gym 3 to 4 times per week. I am doing some low intensity, steady state cardio. And that's basically it. It's just the exact same habits that I had on my fat loss phase. I'm now doing those very simple habits, nothing drastic, but I'm eating more food, okay? And I'm maintaining my weight. I'm more full of energy. And what I'll do is I'll transition to a gaining phase soon, where the habits will also stay the same, but the level of food that I'm eating and probably the volume of training I'm doing will slightly increment. So yeah, and during that dieting phase, I didn't give up anything that I liked. Like, I still had sugar in all my coffee, which, you know, if you're sub to my channel, you'll know that's a thing that I like to have in my life. There's sugar in this. But I'm not eating massive desserts. I'm not going out for ice cream. It's not my thing. I prefer to have like these little small bits of sugar here and there throughout the day, and every now and then I might get a burger, or I might throw in an oven pizza if I'm lazy on a given evening. But I'm not oscillating through these massive periods of deprivation and then reward. And that's true whether I'm in a dieting phase, a maintenance phase, or a gaining phase. And I think this needs to be discussed a lot more, because the statistics around people who successfully keep the weight off for the rest of their life are absolutely shocking. A big part of this, I do believe, is because agency, choice, free will, in a sense, is taken away from people when they are on a traditional weight loss phase. They go into very restrictive diets with arbitrary rule sets in there for no good reason, and then people don't know how to transition off the diet, because these diets are not lifestyles, they are interventions. They can only work in the short term, because you cannot deprive yourself of reward in the long term. If you enjoyed this video, sub to the channel, all the usual things. Look in the description, there's some links there as well. One of which is the flexible fat loss framework. So this is how you can build that ecosystem of habits, losing 10 kilos in 12 weeks. And those are the same habits that you're going to need to use anyway to keep the weight off for the rest of your life.